culture, all of these things are part of what we are and what we do, and they cause a lot of trauma and harm, the ridiculousness of others. Like there's a whole realm where we, as the United States, if we think we're leaders, could do so much better, that to just blame our drug problem on somebody else is dumb. And so to demonize all of Latin America for our drug problem, number one, is dumb. Number two, it's a distraction, as usual, from the things that are going on here that need to be taken care of. But number three, I still have that, that feeling and that thought that that's why I asked the question, like, has anybody thought this through? Because it's so easy. You say this thing, you throw this thing out there. Now people are terrified in Venezuela. They're not sure what's going to happen. And if, anybody that's installed by the United States immediately and instantly has zero credibility with their own population down there. Many of them will be, God, people will be thrilled for Maduro to be gone. Don't get me wrong. But it's always be careful what you wish for, right? So who's going to be there instead when Americans have no clue about Latin American culture other than to go down to our beaches in Costa Rica and, enjoy the beaches and the wildlife and the human trafficking and, other things that happen as well. So I just really, I guess what I'm trying to get at is it's very frustrating that people don't think this through, that just talk in these highfalutin terms about, drugs and this and that, and the U.S. power, it's true. This helps in one way with, maybe saber rattling. But it's actual humans down there. And I'll say this, and I put this in the chat, nobody, I think, even read it, but for example, in Costa Rica, right, I was down there when the Sandinistas took over in Nicaragua. Okay, there was a dictator before, Somoza, bad guy, terrible guy, very, very bad, installed and supported by the U.S. The Sandinistas then came in. The Sandinistas were communists. Well, the only reason that they came in is because the U.S. had put a dictator before, so obviously, everybody was suffering. So now communists say, I'm going to promise you the world. So the communists came in. But as a result of all that, our conflict, Costa Rica, we were a country of 2.5 million people. We got about 500,000 Nicaraguan refugees. I don't know if you can imagine what that does to a country that's that tiny. Up until then, our rural guards, we call them, we don't have an army in Costa Rica. We're a very peaceful country. We don't have an army. Up until then, our guards are out there, what would be equivalent of sort of rural guards. They had guns, but they didn't, once this started happening and this regime change stuff and all this violence and the revolutions and things like that, suddenly they were being outgunned with, AK-47s and bank robberies, people that had come in from very violent nations. Our people didn't have a clue how to deal with that. Now we have narcos. Unfortunately, we do have some narcos. Our president, who's a big Trump supporter, is also tied in with narcos, and that's been a problem. And now we've got Trump pushing and threatening the people of Honduras that if they don't vote for the guy that he wants, which is a right-wing guy, then he's going to cut off aid. So he's just messing with all of our lives down there. If we have military intervention in Venezuela, what's going to happen in Panama, Colombia next door? Colombia already has problems. What's going to happen with Panama? What's going to happen with Costa Rica? Because now we get refugees. It drives me crazy the way people play with our lives for political gain. And I think I should land the plane there.
Thank you for that, Barbie. I did a little bit of research. I could find nothing that has been publicly released by the Pentagon or by the White House with regard to any boots on the ground strategy subsequent to the president or in conjunction with the president suggesting that we may need to take military action in Venezuela. Now, that's not to say that the Pentagon lacks contingency programs for anything that could conceivably happen in sector of the world. So the best I could find on that, the last time anything was publicly published by the then Department of Defense, and it's been sitting on their website since then, except with the change, the top of the document now says Department of War, but was when an admiral who was in charge of the military command for that section of the world presented a paper, a contingency plan, should we have to take military action in the future in Venezuela. That was in 2017, I think, was when that was published. I was at my computer earlier. I walked away from it. I'd have to go back to get the date exact, but I think it was 2017. So in terms of public consumption, there's not been a major update in planning with regard to any boots on the ground strategy. And of course, before you invade a country, you would want, you're not going to be able to stick to a plan, but you would want at least an outline of what you want to do before and understand what your goals are. And at least the command, if not the grunts, the command in the field ought to know what the goal is here. So I pray that if a decision is made, and I would hope it would not be absent approval from Congress, but if a decision is made, President believes he has unilateral authority to do so, to invade Venezuela, that they have it in place that doesn't put our troops in greater risk than had they not properly planned it out. So that's the best I could do for your question, your initial question, Barbie. There's probably more that can be researched on this, and if others want to delve into that and help us along with our understanding of this, that would be wonderful. Dominic, followed by David.
Hey, Gary. Happy Monday. Couple of things. What could be the concern of even people who are neutral on Trump, not even supporters of Trump, be concerned about? And I think it's that flotilla would leave the Caribbean with Maduro still in power. It would be a catastrophe of seismic proportions because Maduro would have won. So that's the primary risk I see to observers of President Trump, that there is no alternative to victory at this moment. Putting that aside, as we put other things aside, it's interesting that those who were critical of the second boat attack resorted to the laws of war as it being a violation of the laws of war. I guess inferring that we are at war with Venezuela because we're using the laws of war to criticize.
Wait a minute. I want to try to understand your point. Yeah. You're suggesting that the Hague Convention of 1917 and the subsequent Geneva Conventions with regard to the use of military might against an opposing force and the responsibility of that military, especially with regard to what the Hague Convention outlined, to treat those who are survived by the attack in the same manner as you would treat your own crew members while rescuing them, only applies in a declared war, not an action by a military?
I think so, but I'm not sure, Gary.
That's a very interesting argument that
Yeah, I don't know.
That at least sounds impossible to accept. But maybe you're right about that. But so what? So what's the point?
So, the laws of war. I was confused, I guess, that criticism of the military using the laws of war implied that we were at war. I didn't know.
Okay, great.
And I just wanted to mention this admiral who's being given responsibility for making this decision. If his order was to destroy the vessel, and he had flexibility in deciding what destroy meant, I could see how the spokesman would say he acted within his authority. The other point I wanted to make is, yes, I know I have several, but Congress under Article 1, Section 8 is free to debate the use of force without presidential instigation. Ron Paul can simply make a motion to declare war against Venezuela. And they can have a full-throated debate on the issue. I just read a piece of Article 8, and there is no proscription that it requires a president to be involved in that declaration.
So let me ask you, Dominic. So theoretically, if a member of Congress, a senator, were to be opposed to this impending potential military action in Venezuela, he or she could introduce a declaration of war. And if that declaration of war fails, would that, in your mind, prohibit the president from taking action?
I think so. Unless, of course, in that full-throated debate, there were other alternatives offered the president, like an AUMF of some sorts, a new one. The other, I don't want to go on much more than that. I think I want to go back to my original point, Gary, is that the risk to supporters of Trump is that he fails and that Maduro is still in power when that flotilla leaves. That, I think, would be a major, we have not even scratched the surface of. So that's it. Thank you.
So that argument, I think, is analogous to the police officer pulling the gun and telling the perpetrator to drop his gun or I will shoot, and supports the concept, whether it is technically or not, of that's a strike on that boat. But I can tell you that I feel very uncomfortable with it on a number of levels, whether there is a loophole in the international law on that subject or not. I don't think it really matters, at least not to me. But that's me. Not everybody's going to agree with that perspective, but I find it very disconcerting. And here's the thing. If the United States gets a reputation of not assisting the crew members of a ship that the United States has attacked on the high seas, what prevents another adversary of the United States, should there be a conflict, from abandoning our sailors? If our sailors are on the disabled or sinking ship, that's why you have these agreements, I think. So I never heard this discussed from the perspective that Dominic offered. It's an interesting perspective and I guess worthy of our perusal anyway. David, followed by Marcus.
Hey, Gary. Great discussion again. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. this saber rattling, if you want to call it that, with regard to Venezuela, regime change Maduro to a regime that would be more in sympathy with our oil policies. And, to Marshall's point, the vaunted Monroe Doctrine is obviously being leveraged here. The use of drugs and drug boats and drug traffickers and narcos is obviously a way to spin, as a way to diminish any pushback by the American people, which pushed Trump, and he is in a way putting America first. If you look at it from a regional, geohemispheric standpoint, that's exactly what he's doing. And of course, Americans don't like to see Americans die from drug overdoses. We've all known somebody or a family member, a friend, or an acquaintance who's been a victim of that. And God forbid anybody that knows anybody's been killed by fentanyl, from children to, all stripes on our country. So there's the backdrop that he's using. And obviously the debates around these extrajudicial killings with military strikes is how that plays out under this administration, who's been doing an end run around pardons for people from all types of crimes that should still be sitting in prison. I don't know who's going to do jail time over this, going forward, and how it's going to get litigated. I'm hoping that Congress is bipartisan in its attempt to get to the bottom of this, because it's a bad look internationally. And again, it's a bad look for our soldiers who are overseas and their lives are on the line. And we hope that those countries are going to follow the same protocols of war and Geneva Convention doctrines, so that we don't lose lives over there as a result of the retaliation for stuff like that. We already know how Islamic fundamentalism treats our captured. We know the extents that they'll go to lead country with regard to these aggressions, right? You just saw Pakistan give immunity, lifetime immunity to their generals. And the argument that they made was the citation of the Supreme Court giving President Donald Trump, presidential immunity. So we're seeing how our examples are of implementing these laws and the international framework of war being used by other countries when we decide something different. And so that's the dangerous aspect of this. Now, it isn't about drugs either, Gary, because he just pardoned the former president of Honduras, gentleman by the name of Hernandez, and he was convicted of turning Honduras and Central America into a cocaine superhighway. He was given 4 decades
Into the United States.
And into the United States, exactly. Not to mention his brother got a lifetime sentence for similar crimes against America and with drug trafficking, and DH for part of this legislation. Trump's absolutely, and this giving these guys creative license to do whatever they want. And he was president of a country. He wasn't Pablo Escobar. He wasn't Chapo, who's sitting in prison now. Had been known to give this guy over $1 million plus in bribe. So what are we talking about here? Why is this guy getting off scot-free? And then you have his press secretary Levitt saying that this was a Biden administration overreach, that Joe Biden took this guy down. And so once again, the ghost of Joe Biden's president continues to haunt us with regard to Trump's excuses for his failings. But Gary, the one big blow here is regard to Venezuela is to China. China has given billions of dollars to the Maduro regime in exchange for oil. This goes back into the Chavez regime, where Chavez was the first guy that started this whole socialist revolution, utilizing the architecture of what Cuba and Castro were doing. So China stands to lose, in Trump's terms, bigly here if we take out Maduro, because all those contracts are going to be invalid. This is kind of how China tries to use its soft power. So I think that's front and center a part of this campaign as well, not to mention Iran's collusion with Maduro. So we have a whole host of countries here that we would we can't take China on militarily or even economically, so we're going to have to pick apart, go after their alliances, and particularly alliances that, again, are in our hemisphere that we see as disrupting our economic oil.
The question becomes, do you see the Monroe Doctrine as an invalid doctrine? That would be, if we didn't enforce that, I'm not saying you have to be harsher and invade the country, because I don't think you have to. But one of the defensible national security rationale seems to be the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt Corollary. Thou shalt not be from other countries and screw with the Western Hemisphere, period.
Well, that speaks to back then when that doctrine was written. These were colonies of Spain. These were colonies of Portugal. These weren't sovereign nations. So the emergence of these sovereign nations calls into question our Monroe Doctrine principles, because these countries have a voice, have their own sovereign way in which to defend themselves. And are we violating international law by incurring, like Trump just said, hey, we're going to shut down your airspace? When have we ever done that to a country, a sovereign nation? Right?
So we're saying things and they become so, right? Like, obviously.
Well,
look, I think the Monroe Doctrine is still useful. I disagree with you there. I think the Monroe Doctrine is still useful for the West place, particularly the U.S.
But these nations aren't signatories to our Monroe Doctrine. This was an arbitrary policy. What's that?
It's an imperial policy.
Right, exactly. It's an imperial policy. And so we're seeing a lot of these in Venezuela, because that would further embolden us to take a military approach against if and when they decide to take Taiwan.
But it doesn't mean we should let the Chinese continue to engage in their national interest in the Western Hemisphere. I mean,
Marshall, I have to leave in 2 minutes if you want to give me a chance to talk. But it doesn't matter. I don't want to interrupt.
Okay.
Well, I should be done right now.
What I wanted to say, too, is that you got to also remember, Marshall, Trump campaigned on drill, baby, drill. And he's running into issues with regard to drilling and tourism, and getting pushed back in California, where I live. You can see the ocean behind my picture here. There are billions and billions of gallons or barrels of oil to be drilled off our coastline, but the people don't want it because of the potential damage to the environment, right? So Venezuela does not have to necessarily go after our own resources off our shores, which is a political nightmare for anybody trying to do that. So I just wanted to also bring that to the conversation. But what happens to Venezuelan people getting on land here is that clearly there's a lot of loyalty to the Bolivarian regime. The military has backstopped Maduro because they've been allowed to enrich themselves through their own graft on their own economy. And so I think when gringos coming in to try to blow up the place, the people will solidify around that. Very much the same way the people of Iran were sort of coalescing around the flag, even though they don't like the regime. They don't necessarily like Israel coming in and bombing them to try to get regime change. So I think that is a difficult mentality for us to conquer in taking out Maduro. Not to mention Venezuela is a large country. It's pockmarked by jungles and deserts, and for us to even attempt and we're going to lose troops, Gary. That's the other thing. We're going to lose troops. So whatever Trump campaigned on with regard to not risking American U.S. servicemen's lives, we're going to lose a lot of them trying to topple this guy, in my opinion. And I'll end there.
Thank you for that, David. We are now at 5:59 Eastern Time, so we are not inviting anybody else onto the stage. However, if you're on the stage now and in queue, we will now go into extra time at the top of the hour to allow everyone in queue an opportunity to speak. We will now go to Marcus, followed by Merrill.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So I have very mixed feelings. I have family in Colombia. I know people in Venezuela right now. And I would say Venezuela is a failed state. Unlike Taiwan in their ground, more than Saudi Arabia. It could be the richest country in South America. They wanted to invade Guyana at the beginning of the year. Just put that in your memory. And the Nobel Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado, is in hiding since the election, in danger of losing her life. The former contester, Juan Guaido, who was in Congress, is in Miami. That's only an excuse. So mixed feelings, because I think the world order is basically shrinking to one last remnant there is, and that's nuclear power, period. Everything else doesn't matter. So Trump basically has this fantasy of Putin takes over Ukraine, probably is going to happen unless our last attempt will work. Taiwan, and this is not a failed state, is going to be the prey of the Chinese. And so why not me messing a little bit with Venezuela? I think that's his idea. I don't think it's a good karma, and I don't think boots on the ground is even an option. Regime change is, one said, a gambling with like options, which I think the US could lose. It's not a high likelihood that this will be in any way any good outcome for us. So I don't think this is the right way to do it. But yes, Venezuela is a failed state, unlike Taiwan. Sorry to say, to my friend Tiger.
Thank you for that, Marcus. I'm glad you stuck around. Meryl, followed by Steve.
Well, I'm probably going to be the most uninformed person on the stage. I have a lot of questions, very curious about a lot of things. I will begin by saying I also have a bias. I do not think that Trump has the quality of advisors, the Pentagon, general, anybody that works with him, that advises him, that is smart, brilliant, knows what they're doing, or that he listens to. So I start there. Now, when I learned about all of this, it was Trump was going and blowing up boats because of fentanyl. They were bringing fentanyl to this country, and he was going to stop the fentanyl. I haven't heard fentanyl mentioned in days. I have heard cocaine mentioned. I heard Mark Kelly talk about that. In actuality, the boats that are being blown up might be the cocaine boats, because they're taking a different route than fentanyl boats take if they're coming to the United States. These are not the route that the fentanyl boats take, that these are more like the cocaine and it goes to Europe or wherever. So that I'm kind of confused about. The other issue is we don't know. There has been no, as far as I understand, there is no declaration of war yet. Correct? Am I correct in that?
Obviously, there is no declaration of war.
So then what we are doing is murdering people. In all actuality, that is murder. Literally, that is murder. If there's no declaration of war, that is murder. On the general now, or the admiral who's taking or being thrown under the bus, whatever, we never would have known about that this ever happened, the second one. We never hear of a second bombing or going after that. We never hear about them having to clean up debris. We always just heard they blew up a boat. And I think that we never would have heard about this had it not been, and I believe it started with the Senate hear about this. That happened in September, by the way. And we start to hear about this. And that you do not blow up. Oh, by the way, too, there's videos. We're going to want to see those videos. That's automatic. The videos go the minute you shoot the bomb. There's a video. It's automatic. So we're going to want to see that second video. And I still don't quite understand. Somebody's saying I did the order, but is he saying I did the order to kill 2 unarmed people in the wreckage? We haven't heard that. I mean, I think that changes things, doesn't it? If you've got 2 unarmed people that are there, do you do the second one? that's to me, that's where I'm confused. And I could be way off on this. But that's one of the things. The other things I've never heard once yet that any of these boats are shooting at the United States, at doing anything to us. Have there been anything? Have we ever met anybody that's tried to contact us, use arms, use anything to us to blow us up? I haven't heard that. So that makes me also wonder. And do we know? My understanding too is that the Senate has said what Mark Kelly and those people said, Mark Kelly said in an interview, is they're not getting enough information from Trump to know what's really going on. Is he at this line? Has he crossed the line? We don't really know yet. Now we're hearing he wants to go into Venezuela on the ground. What are we doing? Is this all really just for a regime change? Is it for oil? Was it really for drugs? What is all of this for? Is this just Trump playing Risk, because it's weak and he can take over that country or throw out a regime? I just have so many questions. And I don't know if I'm the only person who has those questions. Maybe I'm just the most uninformed person. Thank you.
So the one thing I would say is that the United States, the last time the United States declared war was World War II. And yet we've been involved in numerous conflicts that were, whether they were officially wars or not, certainly they were wars. Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan and others. So there are ways around, which I don't agree with, by the way. I believe the Constitution is pretty clear that it requires a declaration of war, but they've passed, we've discussed this before, I don't have it in front of me right now, that the president can engage without the authorization of Congress for a limited period of time, a very short period of time, and then has to go back to Congress for some kind of approval if he wants to continue whatever military action.
And it allows him to do
that's under the War Powers Act, yeah. So the fact that there's been no war declared, I agree with you conceptually that that's probably not cool, but I don't think it was very cool any other time that the United States has subverted the will of the Constitution by taking military action. But, it doesn't matter whether there's a declared war or not, and whether we call it a war or not. You're absolutely correct that we are shooting out of the water boats that do not threaten our military. It's not like you have to shoot them because they're going to shoot you. They're shooting them out to make a point, who felt that that was a good thing. Most of them, obviously not all, but most of them are in agreement with Merrill and myself and the others who have expressed concern about the secondary attack. I don't understand the philosophical question he was asking, which is very possible. But I just want to counter that philosophical comment by underscoring it's not right under any ethical or moral or probably legal scrutiny to do what they did. I just can't see how anyone, this is my personal opinion, can justify once you've blown the boat out of the water, going back and making sure everybody that was on the boat is dead with a second attack. That's not how we conduct ourselves as a nation, at least not officially. There may be cases, of course have been cases on the ground, and it doesn't make it any less heinous, but they were going contrary to the rules of engagement. This apparently is not contrary to the rules of engagement. I think every American.
For some other reason. Well, maybe I'll go out. I'll change the for some other reason. Well, maybe I'll go out. I'll change the regime here or something. I don't think it starts that way. I think it started out what's happened, and I think it's pretty awful, because if this has been going on this long, then Congress should have known about it. And I have a lot of concerns, I want to watch that admiral and see how many people is that admiral going to, you can go to jail for life, or you can be executed. So I want to know.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go to Steve Wine, followed by Steve Appel. Steve.
For about 17 years and got to know a lot of people that worked in the Special Warfare Operations Center over there. I don't know if the room's active there, but I guarantee you the room's active somewhere. One of my friends, his job was to go in that room and pick a scenario somewhere in the world and war game it out. They do this all over the world. They're constantly war gaming. And when you got a situation that's emerging like you have down in Venezuela, believe me, they war gamed this out before. You don't have some kind of comprehensive plan that's been devised and it's being fine-tuned right now. It's just, if you believe that, you don't know anything about these special operators. But the second thing is, and I hear this all the time, and it's a misconception, I think. Well, there's a demand in the United States for these drugs that are coming in and killing everyone. Well, anyone that's ever seen the drug trade operate, one of the things the drug dealers do, and they do it very well, they farm their demand. That's like if you want someone to start doing this particular product, you send a bunch of your low-level guys out and you hand it out and you let people get high on it and you get them liking it. And then once you got them on it, then you drop the hammer on the price. So this idea that it's just some kind of way generically manifests itself into this addiction is patently wrong. It's a blatant misunderstanding of how the drug trade works. Third thing is, you mentioned the Hague Convention, didn't you, Gary? Was that in like 1909?
1917.
1917. I wonder if the Japanese, when we was fighting in the Pacific and they blew one of our ships up and we had guys in the water, how many of those guys you think made it out of the water, Gary?
I don't know whether it was adhered to during World War II by our side or their side, but what does that have to do with whether or not it ought to be adhered to today? So fundamentally, do you agree with what the Hague Convention says, or do you disagree with it?
No, I tell you what I disagree with, because I've seen the results of it up close and personal. To a man, you'll find these guys coming out and saying, "Man, I'm messed up for life." Okay, if that's a price you're willing to pay on your fellow man when you send him into conflict, that he comes back carrying that burden, you need to be aware that's what you're doing.
Is that a fair analogy, Steve, to the instant that we are discussing?
Yeah, I think it is. I'll tell you why.
What harm would?
Love is strong. This is our Lord and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole, and everyone is a star. There is no God but man. Master Terry, Kitover, Alistair Crowley, the Master, Alistair Crowley. Man has a right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to pay as he will, to rest as he will die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, or build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take it, feel and will, love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. The slave shall serve, love as the Lord under will. The strong, this is our Lord, and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that, and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The righteous man must bury in the fate of put her out. Oh, Alistair Crowley, the master, Alistair Crowley. On the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, or build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take it, feel and will, love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who will thwart these rights. The slave shall serve, loves the Lord, love under will. The Lord of the strong, this is our Lord, and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the Lord. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that, and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The righteous man, master theory, afraid of her rival, Alistair Crowley. To live in the way that he wills, to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. A man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. A man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. The slave shall serve. Love is the law, love under will. The law is strong, this is our law, the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that, and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. Alistair Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law. Live in the way that he wills, to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. The slave shall serve. Love is the law, love under will. The law is strong. This is our law. whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do that, will do that, and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star, there is no God but the man, the rights of man, master theory, and freedom, clear out, oh, Aleister Crowley, Aleister Crowley, the master Aleister Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law. Will to die when and how he will.
Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and love as he will, when, where, and who he will. Man has the right to kill those who avoid these rights. The slave shall serve. Love is the law, love of the will, the law of the strong. This is our law, the joy of the world.
Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that, and no other shall say nay.
Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man, master theory and freedom. Aleister Crowley, Aleister Crowley, the master Aleister Crowley. Man has a right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has a right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has a right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has a right to love as he will, take you from the will to love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has a right to kill those who would for these rights. Slaves shall serve. Love is the law. Love of the will, the law of the strong. This is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that no one shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man of the rights of his own. Man has a right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has a right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has a right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has a right to love as he will, take up in the will to love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has a right to kill those who would for these rights. Slaves shall serve. Love is the law. Love of the will, the law is strong. This is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man, master theory, afraid of murder, Aleister Crowley, Aleister Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law. Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to
you will, to die when and how you will. Man has a right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has a right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, comment, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has a right to love as he will, take and fill a will of love as he will, and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who would toward these rights. Slaves shall serve. Love is the law. Love under will. The law is strong. This is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that and no other shall save thee. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man. Master Darius. Freedom for Alistair Crowley. Alistair Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law.
Awards panel, all the classic miracles.
What is the argument from skepticism?
Wait, just give me 1 second. My girlfriend just got home.
That's a miracle.
That's more of a miracle than anything he said, bro. Damn. Hey, that's the Ethan that there's like some young kid who's like a dork and
He's super into miracles. That's the guy.
Oh my goodness.
See, and this is a dude who thinks miracles are real and that they prove.
Specifically Catholicism.
Oh man, I wanted to talk to him. But
Sien's been roasting the flat earthers.
Yeah, I'm asking your favorite argument. Sam believes the earth is flat.
Did he just say that his evidence for God the argument is miracles?
Yeah, he loves miracles.
Yeah, it did.
Is this Ethan?
Over Texas, who knows? I mean, people are saying, just wait. I mean, we have. It's going to be within the next what? It doesn't Supreme Court end this little session within the next week or something.
Yeah, they go into they go into recess until next year.
Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he will.